Okay, in 1956, since we were under the British, the name changed to the Princess Margaret Hospital. Now this side of the facility was constructed in 2012, but the original structure stands from 1952. If you are 12 years of age or younger, or a senior citizen, you will be served free of charge in this hospital facility. If you are a non-resident of the Bahamas, you only need to pay $20 to register. And if you are a resident of the Bahama Islands, you only need to pay $10 to register. Now the trick about that hospital facility, you will be encountering a very long line. Alright, the blue building coming up to your left-hand side will be called Zion Baptist Church. And this is one of the second oldest Baptist church founded in 1835, okay? Over here to the right of you, that is some of our criminal courthouses. All of them are actually courthouses to the right. And this building coming up here to the right, right here, this will be our first prison or jailhouse ever constructed in the Bahamas. That's now become a public library and museum. Also coming up to the right with the red doors and windows, this is an original structure just built out of brimstone and lime. No reinforced steel was ever used with that building either. That was built sometime in the 1800s. Now coming up here to the left is the Registrar's General's office, and this is where you guys access, this is where we access all of our, this is where we access the marriage certificate. This is also where we access our birth certificate, and unfortunately that is where we also get our death certificate from, okay? And that is all powered and controlled by our government as well. Over here to the right will be Bank of the Bahamas, and this is our very own Bahamian-owned bank. Now that bank there, we call it BOB or Bob for short, and that actually sits on a former cemetery that was there back in the late 1800s. So that bank sits on a former cemetery. If you guys look straight across the street, that will be the Central Bank of the Bahamas, and the Central Bank of the Bahamas is responsible for the Bahamian currency. Also, that will be the only bank here in the Bahamas that will not grant you any loans, okay? Now, the Central Bank also is the bank that actually confiscates your money if you were found with money from illegal drugs, human trafficking, or any crime of that sort. Now, once the government confiscates it, it will be put into the Central Bank of the Bahamas, and it will not be given back. And all depends on the nature of your crime. You will be fined or imprisoned as well, okay? Now, over here to the left-hand side of you will be Government House. So this is easily compared to like the White House, okay? This is where our Governor General of the Bahamas has to stay during their term of office, which is 5 years, okay? Now, the Prime Minister actually runs our country, but the Governor General is selected by the Prime Minister, okay? And we select the Prime Minister every 5 years. Now, once the Prime Minister, there's no term limits for a Prime Minister here in the Bahamas, so they can run as long as they're selected by the people. There's also a statue of Christopher Columbus, who they said discovered the Bahamas in 1492. But when Columbus came here, he met a lot of the Arawak Indians located here in the Bahamas as well. Now, we had our first female Governor General of the Bahamas that just left office about a few months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago. She was the first female Governor General, and she is the widow of our first Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the late Lyndon Oscar Pillin. Now, down here in the Bahamas, we have our own little army, what we would call the Defense Force, and this property is protected by the little army 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, okay? Alright guys, we're going to be riding on through to Great Cliff 5-Star Restaurant and Hotel. Now, Great Cliff 5-Star Restaurant and Hotel is Nassau. It has Nassau's oldest and only wine cellar here. Very, very good wine located here in the Great Cliff. And in my opinion, this is the best 5-star restaurant that we have here on the island. Great Cliff also carries their own museum, their own free wine tasting, their own gift store, and Great Cliff also has their own chocolate factory. Okay, they also have their own cigar shop where you can learn how to roll your own cigars or participate in them. Now, coming up to the left is the chocolate factory where you can go on a chocolate guided tour and make your own chocolates as well. It also has their own cigar store, like I say here, to the left, to the back, where you can participate in rolling your own cigars or just watch them roll your own cigars for your enjoyment. Also over here to the left will be the National Art Gallery of the Bahamas. And the National Art Gallery of the Bahamas is where you guys can find all of your local arts, crafts, and paintings done by local residents of the Bahamas. All right. Over here to the left of you will be one of our historic churches here as well. It's not the oldest church here in the Bahamas, but it is St. Francis Xavier Cathedral. And if you were to look on that property, you can see that some of the buildings are historic. Now, this street that we're on, this is more like for the Greeks. This is a lot of Greeks actually stay here. And if you see these two blue buildings to the side of you to the right, this is the Greek Orthodox Church. Okay. Now, this church was actually constructed by the members that go here. And every year they have a Greek festival that goes on. So they block this whole street off and they will have a Greek festival. It's very, very nice, very good. Because back in the late 1800s, a lot of the buildings in the downtown area were owned by Greeks. All right. So some of them still own some of the buildings, and some of them are still reside here in the Bahamas. All right, we're going through a little street. Now the building that will be coming up to the right-hand side of you, this was actually a bank owned by a Bahamian businessman. Now, he was never granted a license to open his bank, so now he rents the spaces out to corporate offices. Now, that guy's name will be called Craig Flowers, and Craig Flowers was actually a former pilot for the Bahamas, so he flew our national flag carrier, which will be Bahamas Air. That was our former pilot. Now, Craig Flowers, since his bank was not granted a license to open, he is now in the online gaming business, okay? And it is legal here in the Bahamas to gamble. Now, the only thing you cannot do as local residents is go inside of our local casinos and do any gambling. You're not allowed to do that here in our casino. This church here is another historic church to the left, the Virgin St. Mary's Church right here. As you can see, nothing was done with the building after it was constructed. It stayed the same from it was constructed. Now over here, straight across the street, will be our own Bahamian brewery, Jimmy's Wines and Spirits, and that normally manufactures sand spirits. Now